Hi everyone, Mr. Barden here. This is going to be a relatively quick video. I hinted in the last one that there were better ways to kind of organize our sounds in the sketches from what I showed in the video, and this is going to be the answer to that question. So how can we do that? So utilizing Tone.Js and just loading in all the sounds in order to play them back, I introduced an object that was Tone.Player. And each player loads in a single sound file, and we can connect it either to the destination speakers. We can connect it to effects and other algorithms. We can connect to a lot of stuff. But the core drawback is that it is one object per sound. So what I'm going to show you now is another object that will combine all of these into one larger one. So let's just hop right into it. I've got on the screen a copy of the same sketch right where I left it off at the end of the previous video. So if you're watching all of these in order, this is literally where the last one left off. What I'm going to do is do a little bit of tweaking. So we'll keep the same ways that we're controlling and triggering all of these sounds on the screen, but we're going to be focusing on the preload function and changing that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get rid of everything we have involving that, just like so. And I'm going to make a single object. So let these, I call this a lot of things in different scenarios. You'll see multiplayer a lot in the book because it's plays multiple sounds. You can call it whatever you want. We're going to just call this, let's pretend we're making a game, and this will just be the soundtrack. All right. So what we can do is in preload, soundtrack is a new Tone.Players. Now, you may be thinking, well, wait, that's very similar, if not identical. And you would be right. I'm not a fan of this name because it is literally just the previous one with an S. That's the only difference, Tone.Players. I mean, it makes sense for what it does, but I mean, I don't like how similar it is. I feel like it could be very easy to mess it up and, have the wrong thing happening or accidentally trying to load in a whole bunch of sounds to a regular Tone.Player object and not realizing it. But Tone.Players with an S can be used to load up multiple sound files into one place. And that's very handy. Just like everything else, we can just say .to destination because we're going to want to hear it. And I need a capital D here, like that. But where it gets just a hair different is what we type in the arguments here. So we still have to tell it where to find the files, but we still need to give every file a unique identifying name. Otherwise, the computer won't be able to tell them apart. So to do that, if you go into those parentheses and you type in the curly brackets and open that up, we're just going to use some normal JSON JavaScript object notation formatting and get that done so that way we can have a label for all the files and where to find it. That's what we need. So what I'll type here is I'll just say bell : and then where we find it. And that will be the file location, audio/cowbell.mp3. And that's the process. We just give it a name, tell it where to find the file. And then we just separate them out by commas, however much we need. Popcorn, audio/popcorn.mp3. And you can just list as many as you need here. Just separate them by commas, and then it's just label : file location, label : file, label : file, as many as you need. And you can just keep them all in this single object. The reason it's called Tone.Players and how it's working like this is that each of these technically in the background of it is a separate player object. We are just creating soundtrack as a wrapper around all of them so we can talk to all of them at the same time. And that's really what's going on there. So you can make as many as you need. It's like making individual player objects like in the last video, but we're just, again, wrapping around all of them with the larger soundtrack label here, so we can talk to everything at once. So this is very handy, again, for organizing things. Maybe you're doing some stuff and you need to have an emergency switch to stop the sound because something is breaking. You could, boom, and then it stops all the sound regardless of what it is. Just all of it. You could start and stop certain things. You could apply the processing in different ways. It's just, for what I do at least, this is a much better way to organize all of my sounds. And you can make multiple players objects as well if you want. There's no rule one way or another. I prefer to do it like this. The only thing that becomes a little bit different now is telling the computer to play the sounds. So we are no longer referring to these objects. So I'm just going to delete them, these lines, and we are going to be talking to soundtrack. It's the name of the object. And we have to, like we've done a little bit before, we have to kind of chain together some of these methods. So we're going to first say soundtrack.player. And this will be the same for all of them. Soundtrack.player. Dot start. It's going to start, they're going to look like this. The only real difference is inside of player, we then give it as a string which label we gave it up here. Which specific player do we want to start? So this is the bell. So I called it bell up top. So bell. I'm going to copy and paste this to save some time. Oop, wrong spot. And we'll just replace this with popcorn. And from there, everything else is identical. So again, all we're doing is loading in the sounds, which we've done. We're making the buttons and telling them to run the functions. And we're just now saying, hey, instead of just talking directly to an object, we're saying, and say start, we're saying, hey, you soundtrack object, tell that player to start. We've kind of delegated some of that work. And the result is the same. I'm going to play both the sounds, and that's pretty much going to be the end of the video. So here we go. I'll play the sounds. Here's the first one. And the second one. Same thing, just to prove it still works at the keyboard. So again, this works either way. Both of them are fine. Personally, for, again, my class and my students, I prefer to use the players because it's just making one thing. But if you prefer the other way, do that. There's no right or wrong. I just think it's a little bit easier to manage some of my sounds. So like if I wanted to globally affect something, I can do that very, very simply. That's going to be it for this video, though. In the next one, I'm going to be talking about taking some audio effects and beginning to insert them into this signal pathway. Because right now, we're just going right from the sound source to the output speakers in order to hear things. So now we're going to start putting stuff in between that in order to change and process the sounds. So that'll be it for me today. And like always, I'll see you when I see you.